freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest boys show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Riles and the Italian style. You want sports is the only politic.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
If our team can be better because of this move, and I don't know that, but if we can, then darn it, that's what we need to do, and that's what I need to do, and that's my job as a head coach. And there's a lot of great head coaches out there in this league that don't call plays as well, and have done it a long time, that I have a lot of respect for. So that's just a part of this job that I signed up for, and I have to make these decisions, and it just really makes it a lot easier when you have people that you believe in, and at the same point in time, for me, I do feel like right now this is the time. One of the things that we've been discussing all week is, you guys have talked about is the play calling, and I just wanted to let everybody know that, I made the decision to go ahead and pass up the play calling, and I'm going to give it to Bill Lazor. So it's a decision that I made, we've been talking about as a staff, and I said to you guys the last couple of days, keeping it internal, and a lot of that was for really the idea for us to collaborate as to where we're at and how can we be better as a staff, how can we be better as a team. And as you all know, it's very, very important for me to make sure that I'm doing everything I possibly can to make the best decision for the Chicago Bears.
Let's make the best decision for you, the Chicago Bears. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're broadcasting live, streaming from the illustrious studios of WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago, in the fantastic neighborhood of Jefferson Park. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. What's up, Chicago?
The Rewind Sports 60. We are broadcasting live from WCPT AM Studios 820 AM on the fastest conversation in sports. I'm Lauren Cox, your host, and I'm here with my wonderful, amazing team. Dan Marver, the marvelous one, and Jerry Riles, the amazing Jerry Riles. Give us a call, 773-763-9278. Again, that's 773-763-9278. Dan, I want to get right into sports. Some amazing things happen in baseball. I wanted to get your opinion on a couple of things. White Sox manager Tony La Russa being charged with driving under the influence, and then that historic GM Marlins, they went ahead and hired the assistant GM for the Yankees and the Dodgers, and she was also a high-ranking exec with the White Sox. The first female GM in the MLB, NBA, and the NFL. So we want to get your opinion on those two things. Kim Ainge, what do you think about what was going on in baseball this week, Dan?
Baseball, okay. Well, I think it's certainly about time that a woman, female, takes over as a baseball organization. I mean, it's long overdue in terms of that's concerned. And Tony La Russa, I mean, he had his World Series ring. I didn't know if he was going to try to bribe the officer with it, but he did. He did mention that he was a World Series winner to the officer, apparently. But I'm just interested to see how Bill Lazor does this week calling the plays without Montgomery in the offense.
So well, we're going to get to that. Jesus Christ.
So those are some of the things I was thinking about. But, like I say, you raise a good point with La Russa, and they knew about this issue when they hired him. So It'll be interesting to see what happens, but...
was it like a week before he got hired?
It was within days, I thought, according to what I heard, but... we'll see what happens. I mean, there's been no penalty in terms of the White Sox, and I don't know what penalty he'll get from the the legal system on this. So we'll have to wait and see.
Wait a minute, Joe. So what did you guys? What's the question that you asked when?
La Russa?
Yeah.
Oh.
You know he got charged.
No, I know that. I'm asking. You asked him a question. When did it happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't it happen like a week before?
No, it happened a long time ago.
Yeah. The initial encounter happened in February.
February.
Okay.
Yeah, the initial encounter happened in February, of course, but it was just reported, last week.
Okay.
After the fact that the White Sox hired him.
Right.
Right, and so it came out, and that's what all the uproar was all about. Was the fact that how could the White Sox hire this guy? Who it's his second DUI?
Right. Isn't there usually a penalty between February and October in this thing? If there was going to be one, that's the thing that puzzled me.
What do you mean a penalty?
I mean a penalty from the judicial system for Mr. La Russa for an offense in February. That's the thing that I couldn't figure out.
It's different states, of course.
Okay.
It happened in Arizona.
Okay.
So I would imagine for each state, each jurisdiction has whatever,
Okay, penalties
or whatever the case may be regarding,
I got you.
The crime. But the fact of the matter is that Tony La Russa. Now I need to ask the question. I really do.
Tell it.
First of all, I mean it's bad, it's unacceptable, and it's inexcusable.
Yeah.
And the White Sox unfortunately knew about the situation. They knew about the situation, and they turned a blind eye or whatever the case may be. And maybe that was part of the reason that General Manager Rick Hahn had some repercussions as far as the announcement and hiring of Tony La Russa to succeed Ricky Renteria as the White Sox next manager, is the fact that they knew that this was going to surface sooner or later. But, of course, Jerry Reinsdorf, it's his team, so he can do whatever he wants to, and he has a great relationship with Tony La Russa. But Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn and people in the front office, I'm sure they knew that this was going to surface sooner or later, and that's why I think you kind of saw it wasn't consensus as far as the hire was concerned. And of course, the news came out regarding Tony La Russa and the fact that it was his second offense, and then of course we get information that he's like, hey, take a look at my ring. Don't you know who I am? I'm the great Tony La Russa. I'm a World Series manager. I'm a Hall of Famer. Are you guys nuts? Are you guys crazy?
Are you crazy? And and you talk about his great relationship, Jerry, the amazing Jerry Riles. You talk about his relationship with Jerry. What does that have to do with him managing a team?
It's his buddy.
Those are young players. They're starting to trying to transition, young team, a young vibe, young energy. And then you bring in a 78-year-old. He's 78, right?
Well, he's 76 years old.
76-year-old.
What does that got to do with anything, Lauren?
How is he going to relate to these players? And his stance on the Colin Kaepernick situation.
Well, he just told you. He said, hey, wait a minute. I got a World Series championship ring here.
50 years ago?
He said, hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. I'm a Hall of Famer. Okay? I know baseball inside and out.
Is he going to be able to connect with this locker room?
What does connect mean when you say that?
Get the best out of him. Are they going to listen to him?
He has coaches, too.
Again, he just said, I'm a World Series champion. I'm a Hall of Famer. If these players who are on the White Sox roster, if they can't connect with him, they either don't need to be in the game or they need to be playing for another team.
So you support the hire?
I'm a Jerry Riles.
You just had the old coach so bad. You would have picked anybody, Jerry. You was his number one fan.
Well, I probably would have.
You hated the guy.
I'm a Tony La Russa guy, too. I like Tony La Russa.
So you didn't have a problem with his Colin Kaepernick comments? And you don't think that he's a little out of touch for him to even go there?
Well, that was 4 years ago when Colin Kaepernick first took the position. But he changed. Hey, this is what I tell people.
Or did he say what he had to say? Come on.
I think it's a combination of the two. I think he changed, and I think he said what he had to say. Okay. I think that initially there were a lot of people that felt that Colin Kaepernick was wrong in his position because they simply didn't understand. They didn't know the reason behind it and they didn't really understand it. And so that's why I think at that time, many people took offense to what he was doing. I think over the 4-year time frame, when everything started to unravel and unfold before our eyes, I'm sure many of our listeners, I'm sure many people who were opposed to Colin Kaepernick, as well as Tony La Russa, said, hey, wait a minute. You know what? This guy had a position, and I was out of line. Now you got the great coach Mike Ditka, and of course Brian Urlacher, who still don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
So
but Mike Ditka,
I don't think Tony La Russa.
Okay.
I don't think Tony La Russa, to answer your question, fits that bill. I think Tony La Russa is open-minded enough and understands the circumstances and the situations that unfolded over the past 4 years and say, you know what, this kid was right. And a lot of people said that. Well, a lot of people said,
but a lot of people didn't stand
right
up in his position and say something like he said. He didn't. That's not even his sport. He didn't even have to go there.
But the one thing that athletes do, Lauren, regardless of whatever the sport may be, athletes, coaches, they stick together. Each league is a fraternity in its own right. The National Football League, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, they're a fraternity in their own right. But when you're a professional athlete, that's a big fraternity, and they all are in support of one another. And if they did, again, in my opinion, didn't understand the full cause of what Colin Kaepernick was trying to get across as far as his message was concerned, hey, man, take that up. Because there were players that say, hey, man, take that up on your own time. This is our livelihood.
Jerry, Lauren, there are only two things in Jerry Reinsdorf's mind, none of the things we just mentioned. Number one, he wanted to correct a big error, the biggest error he ever made, he said. And number two, he wants to win a World Series. So all the other things aside, those are the two goals, and any other factor was not in his consciousness. So
and if you take away the DUIs as far as Tony La Russa is concerned, if you take away the comments regarding Colin Kaepernick 4 years ago, what he said, Tony La Russa is an outstanding baseball mind. The guy's an outstanding baseball mind.
Okay.
And here's the deal: as far as making a connection with the players in the locker room, again, Lauren. This guy's the best one of the best in the business. And if a Tim Anderson can't learn from Tony La Russa, is a Jose Abreu can't learn from a Tony La Russa as far as how to play the games between the stripes, there's something wrong there, in my opinion.
Now, Dan, I want to ask you, why he's been out the league for several years. He's 76 years old. He's coming back. What I mean, put yourself in his position.
Put yourself in there.
Would you want to come back and I don't care about the air and these personal issues.
At the age factor, let's look at Dusty Baker, okay? If you want to look at common age.
But Dusty Baker wasn't out that long.
I know, but I mean, you're talking about the age. So he's a little bit younger, but it's a similar age. Madden, there are others that are in that seem to be able to relate to the players that are in their 70s, and if they're not, then there are coaches too, that can help with that. But La Russa does have gravitas with regard to having been successful, so that would probably perk up somebody's ears, wouldn't you think?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Who do you think the White Sox should have gone for?
Yeah, that one just, and of course, I heard them saying his name, and I just, to me, there were other people I thought were more qualified, but all of that personal stuff and then I started thinking about the Bulls and all that stuff, and it's just a bad taste in my mouth in terms of Jerry trying to right his wrongs and bringing, something that happened 50,000 years ago into it, and then, with the Colin Kaepernick stuff on top of it, now the DUI. Jerry and Dan, it just seems like too much.
Really?
It seems like too much to me. Like, come on. How many chances are you going to give him? Like, what else?
Who, Jerry Riles?
No, well, him
how
too,
many chances you going to give who?
La Russa. I mean,
Tony La Russa?
Yeah, I just feel like it was 1, 2, 3. The age and all that, him being out, and then the Colin Kaepernick comments, and then, all the situation with him and Jerry and him trying to, right his wrong. And then we got the DUI that came out.
Yeah,
and,
you know what? I think the DUI was very, very serious in the fact that the White Sox, and again, I think Rick Hahn and Kenny, they tried to probably advise Jerry Reinsdorf, hey, man, we don't want to deal with this. The same thing with A.J. Hinch as far as the cheating is concerned with the Houston Astros. I think they had some serious discussions as far as, hey, the repercussions that's going to manifest from this hire. Do we want to go down that road, and can we handle going down that road? And I think Jerry Reinsdorf, at the end of the day, like Marvelous said, hey, you know what? Listen, this is one of my best friends, one of my good friends, and I got to correct something that happened many years ago. But I also want to win a World Series championship before the good Lord calls me home. And so he said, hey, you know what? It's my team. I put this all you guys in position. I believe this is the best guy to get me to the mountaintop, and I'm going to do it. Now, as far as correcting a wrong is concerned, it was wrong for the White Sox, in my opinion, to hire Ricky Renteria in the first damn place. But I understood why they did that, because they were trying to develop these young players that they had in there a year earlier. And congratulations to Ricky Renteria for being named he was runner-up as far as manager of the year for the American League. So congratulations to him. His work is done. He got paid for it. But as far as correcting a wrong regarding Jerry Reinsdorf, he felt that, hey, this is what I believe, this is what I want, this is my team, and this is what I'm going to do. Now it's going to be interesting to see, and the White Sox put out a statement that said we're going to wait to see what transpires as far as the outcome of the situation is. And Marvelous, to start the show, you opened up a great question and said, you know, what's the procedure as far as penalty? You know, and I don't know the state of Arizona. We know that Charles Barkley got pulled over or whatever for a DUI or whatever a few years ago, and he had to go in the tent for like 30 days or 60 days. Mark Grace, I think he had some problems also in Arizona, and he had to, take care of some business as well. So it still remains to be seen. It's going to be interesting. I tell you this. As long as we've been listening to sports, following sports, and observing sports, at the end of the day, winning heals all wounds.
Yes.
Winning heals all wounds. And let's hope that the good Lord, gets us through this pandemic, and we get a 162-game regular season baseball schedule in 2021, and let the cards fall where they may. But I honestly, I truly believe that Tony La Russa, he certainly knows how to control a clubhouse. And I believe these young players, they listen to upper management, they do a little bit of homework and research. They'll see that Tony La Russa knows the game of baseball. And what they need to do is go out there and apply and execute.
Okay.
And I think that we'll have a World Series championship in Chicago on the South Side within the next couple of years. I truly believe that.
Okay, we'll see.
I truly believe that. But I wanted to ask this question before we go, and we got the great Bruce Aaron on our hotline to join us. I want to ask this question regarding Tony La Russa, because I know, hey, listen, when the story broke, Lauren and Marvelous, and I asked Marvelous before the show started, Tony La Russa got pulled over. I don't know how many cocktails he had. I don't know how much he was partying. I don't know where he's coming from. I don't know. Tony La Russa was toasted. And I don't want to make light of it or anything of that nature, but Tony La Russa told the cops, hey, look at my ring. Look at my ring.
He tried
I'm a Hall of Famer. And it brought to my mind, because I know there are a lot of guys out there, and you shouldn't be drinking and driving. There's no question about it. It's a serious matter. But I know there are a lot of guys out there over the years who've been pulled over, and the cops question them. And I just love to hear some of the stories that guys have given to get out of a ticket. And I'll share. I'll be the first to share. And I'm not proud of it. Why are you laughing at me? Lauren, why are you over there laughing at me?
Go ahead.
I'm not proud of it. And this was many, many moons ago, back in my beer drinking days. But on Friday nights, here in Chicago, BMX, you remember the old BMX? You don't remember old BMX. WBMX, they play house music. Oh man, it's the best. Maybe it was a Friday night or Saturday night, but any place, they would house music. So my boys and I, we get ready to go out, had the house music going. And so while you're getting ready, while you're primping, Marvelous, you may have a beer or two. Yeah. I was drinking Heineken back then, not Pabst Blue Ribbon. But so you have a couple beers or whatever. So I get in the car and I'm driving down Willow Avenue in Glenview. Maybe about 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And the cop is trailing me, which is, you're a black man in the northern suburbs. It's not unusual. So I'm going, what the hell? So he pulls me over. Young cop, young white cat. He goes, hey, where you going? I go, I'm going to my buddy's house. He lives in Evanston. We're getting ready to go out. He goes, okay. He said, have you been drinking tonight, sir? I go, you know what? I had a couple beers. I had a couple beers.
Yikes.
He said, okay. He said, I want you to be careful. I want you to be safe out there. I goes, yes, sir, officer. He goes, you know what I want you to do for me? I go, no, officer, I don't. He goes, I want you to say the ABCs for me.
God.
Lauren, he stumped me. He stumped me. I said the ABCs. You know what I did? Because he caught me off guard with that. You know what I did?
No.
I started singing A, B, C, D. He started laughing. He goes, get out of here and drive safely.
That's what he asked you to do?
Yeah, he said, get out of here and drive safely. So when Tony La Russa said, when it came out that he said, hey, look at my ring, I know, God, listen, you do whatever you can to get out of it. You get out of it. You got out of it. When Charles Barkley got stopped and the police, and well, we all know the story, it's public. He one of his girls, he would take care of him, and the cop called him, and he's like, hey, dude, it's the best I ever had. It's the best I ever had. And the cop laughed, but he said, hey, I got to take you in because it's indecent exposure. You can't do those sort of things. But I digress, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry.
Back to La Russa. The fact of the matter is he managed the Cardinals to the 2011 World Series championship, then retired. He actually managed the 2012 All-Star game. Yeah, believe it or not, he came back as the representative for the National League World Series champion. So I mean, 10 years is 10 years, but I mean, I don't think he's forgotten everything, even with advanced age.
Again, it's up to the White Sox and the example they want to set for their front office people, the example they want to set for their fan base, and the fact that it happened in February. Yeah. Right? The fact that it happened in February, and you talk about his age, Lauren, he's 76 years of age. I don't know when he turned 76, but he's 75, 70. Maybe he was out celebrating his birthday. I don't know. But the fact that a 76-year-old man is not responsible enough to know that he's had one too many, and for him not to call an Uber or whatever to to take care of that is irresponsible. It really is irresponsible, and it's surprising that Tony La Russa would put himself in that position, among others who may have been on the road during that time. You know what? 773-763-9278 is our number. 773-763-WCTT. It's the Rewind Sports 60, the fastest hour in sports conversation. We want to get into some Bears conversation because the Bears are kicking off against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football against, I lost my train of thought there, but they're kicking off on Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings, and they need some help. We played some cups to start the show off with Matt Nagy. Finally, maybe you listen to the show, Lauren. Maybe you listen to the show, but he's finally turned over the reins as far as play calling is concerned, and the great Lori Lightfoot has been calling for it. We've been calling for it, and I guess he finally got the message.
Is Nick Foles the answer? We're going to see once they get out on the field and start putting it together on the offense. But the inconsistency of Trubisky over these last few years, it's just, even in the year that we had a great run, what you saw, I think, last year was the inconsistent offense wasn't producing. I thought the play calling was very pedestrian.
One of the things that we've been discussing all week is, you guys have talked about is the play calling, and I just wanted to let everybody know that, I made the decision to go ahead and pass up the play calling, and I'm going to give it to Bill Lazor.
He's on our TR60 hotline, ladies and gentlemen. He joins us every Sunday on the Bears postgame. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, the Bears are entertaining, as I told you. Monday Night Football hosting the Minnesota Vikings over on the lakefront. He's number 51 in the program, ladies and gentlemen. He's number one in our hearts. He's on our TR60 hotline. He's the great Bruce Herron. Bruce, how are you, man?
I'm doing fine, Jerry. How you guys doing?
Fine.
We're doing okay. You're doing okay. Hey, Bruce, I made a confession to the listening audience here in the great city of Chicago by saying, and again, it was many, many moons ago, but I had a couple of beers before heading out to meet up with my buddies. The police in Glenview pulled me over, asked me where I was going, and then the promptly asked me to say the ABCs, and he stopped me with the question, so I had to sing the lullaby, A, B, C, D, E, F, D. But everything was fine, everything was good, and we just don't condone drinking and driving because it's very bad, it's irresponsible, and Tony La Russa did not set a great example at the age of 75 or 76 years of age when it happened. And the White Sox brass have taken a hit from the fan base because of the hire. When you heard that news, what did you think of Jerry Reinsdorf giving the reins, the keys, so to speak, to Tony La Russa to run this ball club in 2021?
Well, I tell you, I couldn't believe it when I first saw it. I don't know. Tony's been out of the game a while, and to be 75 plus years old, I think that anybody, depending on regardless of your age or anything, if you've got something to offer, you can bring a championship or help bring a championship to an organization. I don't think we should owe somebody, against the thing just because of their age. But my deal is this: is that there's so much talent out there. I mean, I'm the kind of person I'm sick and tired of seeing all of these coaches that are retreads. I mean, just one job after another, and you've got a lot of younger talent out there that can do a heck of a job if they just give them a chance. And I don't know. I wasn't all excited about it. I'm a big White Sox fan too. But this move, I'm not going to say it's a bad move, but I think there's some other things they could have done.
Yeah, I agree with you. There could have been some other decisions made, some other moves made, but when Jerry Reinsdorf was fired by, at the time, General Manager Ken Hawk Harrelson, and back in '86, Jerry Reinsdorf was kind of fresh, as far as the ownership was concerned. And the one thing about Jerry that we've learned over the years is that he is very loyal and dedicated to his staff. And Jerry is like, hey, if I believe in you and I put you in position to do your job, I'm not a micromanager guy. I'm going to step back and let you do your job. Win or lose, succeed or fail, I'm going to let you do it. And unfortunately, at times, it's to a fault because the fan base who supports, whether it's the Bulls or the Black or the White Sox, we have to endure these poor decisions or bad moves that are made. And I love Jerry Reinsdorf for the fact that he is a loyal owner, but it kind of irks me sometimes that he is, because he can make some different moves or some quicker moves to get us to where we need to be, as opposed to the loyalty aspect of it. But I get it. But again, this is his buddy. And his buddy has an impressive resume, and our buddies, whether it's your buddy, my buddy, Lauren's buddy, Marvel's buddy, all of us, if we have buddies and they have a pretty impressive resume, we overlook the deficiencies. We do. We overlook it and say, hey, man, okay, I'm going to give you a pass this time. Don't let that crap happen again. And you move on. And I think Jerry expects that to happen with the fan base in the city of Chicago, because I don't know if you heard me on hold, but I said, hey, winning cures everything. It cures everything. If the White Sox win, they get a World Series championship, they win. It's a blemish. It's a blemish. But at the end of the day, it's all about the brass, and that's the championship.
Right. It's what my position is. I mean, we can say whether we like the move or not, but at the end of the day, it's only a bad move if they don't win.
Yep.
If they don't win, it's a bad move.
That's it. So as far as a bad move is concerned, we see, the Bears have made some changes, and Matt Nagy is eating crow, so to speak, because when the Bears are 5-1, he's like, hey, enjoy it. And the Bears are 5-2. Hey, come on, we're still 5-2. Now they're on the verge of going 5-5, losing 3 straight games. They entertained the Minnesota Vikings in Monday Night Football. They made the change as far as quarterback was concerned. We haven't seen any production there. They made the change. Finally, this week, Matt Nagy said, I am not going to call plays anymore. I'm going to hand over the keys. What did you think of the decision for Matt Nagy to finally turn the play calling over to Coach Laser?
Well, you know what? I think it was a good move for him to do that. It was. I think the offense coordinator should have always been calling the plays. Because as a head coach, you've got to be engaged at every facet of the game, and to me, it's hard to be personally responsible for calling plays, managing the defense, managing the offense, managing special teams, overseeing all that when you're so entrenched in just the offensive play calling. So I think it was well overdue, and I think we don't know what the outcome of this game is going to be. I mean, Minnesota's been playing really well the last 3 or 4 weeks. Their running game is, my goodness, man, it's off the chart right now.
Bruce,
So I think our team's really going to have to step up and be prepared to play against the run.
You're not kidding. Yeah, Bruce, you're not kidding. This Dan, we did a good job against Henry and with the Titans, but this guy, Dalvin Cook, had 206 yards last week. So
Absolutely.
That's going to be quite a challenge. And I mean, we've done well against the rush, and the defense has been the key. And with Laser taking over with no Montgomery, I think I don't know what he's going to come up with.
Right. So
yeah.
we'll see what happens. I just think that our offensive line is in such a mess that if the offensive output is going to be based on how well the offensive line can pull it together.
Hey, Bruce, Lauren here. When you talk about the O-line, I was thinking about it myself. This is the time of year where the great teams, the teams that are going to be there when it's all said and done, they're starting to peak now. And you look at that O-line, and it seems to me that they're actually regressing. Allowed 12 sacks in the last 3 games. Talk to me a bit more about the O-line and what is it going to take for them to be able to protect Foles? Because honestly, it just seems like he doesn't have the time to let plays develop. What are you hoping to see from the O-line against the Vikings on Monday night?
You know what? I'm not sure how much they can do. I mean, we're still missing a couple of starters out of the offensive line. When the season first started, I didn't think the offensive line was our strongest weapon to begin with, and they're just not aggressive to me. I'm a defensive guy, and looking at the offensive line, it's just really a little bit too passive. So that's something they're going to have to really address this next offseason. But getting through the next few games, the offensive line, they're going to have to. They're going to need some help. They're going to need some help probably from the tight end. They're going to need some help probably from the fullback in the offensive backfield to help seal it, just to give the quarterback an extra second and a half to make a decision to pull the trigger. You asked me what the offensive line is going to do more than what they've done. I mean, if it's the same players that we have last week, and I think also that there are 1 or 2 of the guys that are probably playing out of position.
Right.
They were tinkering with some things, with moving a guy from guard to tackle and from the right side to the left side, and so they're going to need to find the piece out of what they have that's going to give them the best chance to give the quarterback an extra second and a half to throw the ball.
We're on with the great Bruce Herron, former Bear linebacker, 5 years on the lakefront playing for the Beloved, joining us on our Rewind Sports 60 TR60 hotline. Bruce, you talk about offensive line, and we're going to be joined by Sam Acho shortly, who played with the Beloved as well. He's on our TR60 hotline. We'll get him on in a second. But you talked about, a couple of the Bears' offensive linemen playing out of position. It's unfortunate, but this has been happening for quite some time. Remember with Kyle Long, he just retired, about a season or 2 ago, but with Kyle Long, I don't know how many, I think he played almost every position on the offensive line with the Chicago Bears, whether it was due to injuries or, lack thereof, or whatever the case may be, but it seems like it's a recurring pattern for the Chicago Bears, and when you talk about the type of help that they're going to need during the off season, Cody Whitehair is questionable. questionable as far as the Monday night game is concerned against the Minnesota Vikings. We know Robert Massey Jr. has been out. He's had some problems. We know that Charles Leno Jr., he's had some issues. But those are the three core offensive linemen for the Chicago Bears. Why do we think that the Bears, and no offense to those guys, but why do we think that the Bears brass, i.e. Ryan Pace, would be able to make a good decision as far as evaluating talent to bring in some offensive linemen that's going to help, get to the next level?
I don't know, man. They really haven't put a big effort into bringing in offensive linemen in the last couple of drafts. And I mean, we get some mid-round picks for some late-round picks, but the top tier talent out of college, you're going to have to spend a first, second, or maybe go down to third round picks in order to find some of the top tier talent. Now, why they haven't done that, I think they pretty much thought that they could get by with what they have, and I don't know. I've never been a big fan of both of our tackles. I mean, they've been okay, but they just haven't been the type of studs that you really want to build a team around. And I think going forward, I think the team realized they're going to have to address the offensive line more so than anything else.
Yeah, they certainly have to do that. And it's an interesting point. And unfortunately, David Montgomery is not going to be playing tomorrow because he's under concussion protocol. But it's interesting because one reason David Montgomery got so much pub and so much ink is the fact that he was running roughshod at Iowa State, and the offensive line that he was running behind, at the time, they were terrible. I'm almost thinking that offensive line he was running behind in college is probably better than the offensive line he's running behind right now. But I mean, it's I swear to you, man. And
maybe they're available.
Who knows? Hey, Bruce, have you ever had the opportunity to meet and talk with Sam Acho? Former outside linebacker?
I have not talked to Sam. No, I haven't.
Hey, Bruce Harris, say hello to Sam Acho. Sam.
Sam's the ball.
Hey, Sam. How you doing?
Say hello to the great Bruce Herron. He played back in the day with the great Walter Payton. May he rest in peace. But Bruce Herron was a fixture on the lakefront on Sunday afternoons wearing the beloved 51 for the beloved Chicago Bears. Sam Acho. Meet Bruce Herron. What's up, fellas?
Pleasure meeting you, Sam.
It's good to be on. Yeah, good to meet you as well. Good to be on with you.
Hey, Sam, thank you for taking some time out, joining us on the Rewind Sports 6. We appreciate your precious time. We'll get a chance to talk about your latest book that just was released back in October. But joining the conversation, man, we the Bears, they're looking to end this 3-game losing streak, and it's not going to be an easy task tomorrow night over at Soldier Field against the Minnesota Vikings. And Dalvin Cook is just, the guy is just running. He's going nuts. But the bigger question that we've been throwing around is this offensive line for the Chicago Bears, man. What can you add to the conversation regarding what you've been able to witness and the direction you think we need to go to try to make some improvements during this short period of time? We got like 7 games left in the regular season. What is your assessment on the offensive line for the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, well, I think anybody who knows football knows that sometimes your team has strengths and weaknesses. And when you do have those weaknesses, you have to find a way to overcome those weaknesses. So speaking specifically of the offensive line, if you have injuries along the offensive line or players who are playing out of position or players who aren't playing up to standard, well, there's no chance to get new players, right? The new players are already on teams. The good players, quote unquote, they're already on teams. So what you have to do is you have to change your philosophy. We talked about on it earlier a little bit. You have to start keeping tight ends in the block. Cole Kmet, great receiving tight end, but he's got to stay in block, right? You got Jimmy Graham. He's an unbelievable receiver, but sometimes you got to keep these guys in the block. David Montgomery as well. Obviously, he's out for tomorrow, but Lamar Miller, who's playing tomorrow, you're going to have to keep 6, 7 guys in the block if you are going for those deep shot plays. Obviously, we talked about Laser being the new offensive coordinator for this game and Lamar Miller being the new running back. I think it's actually going to be really, really positive for the Bears tomorrow night. 2 reasons. Number one, David Montgomery not being in, I think, is actually going to be a major benefit to this team. The Bears have been committed to proving and showing that David Montgomery is not only the guy, but their guy. right? And his running style is different than Lamar Miller's. Lamar Miller is on the edge. He's fast. He's, tosses, and getting him on the edge is a major benefit. So I think with a new offensive coordinator in Bill Lazor, you're going to see a lot more plays on the edge, a lot more 6- and 7-man protection, and a lot more protecting of the quarterback.
Hey, Sam, Lauren Cox here. Interesting that you say that because, people have been calling for a change in the coaching. It was a lot of Nagy was receiving a lot of bad blood and a lot of blowback from his coaching, and he did decide to go ahead and hand over the play calling. What did you think about that move in terms of handing over the play calling, specifically during this part of the season? The playoffs are approaching. This is a must-win game with the Minnesota Vikings. What did you think about Matt Nagy handing over those play calling?
Yeah, well, Lauren, I think it's the only move you really could have made, right? You've changed quarterbacks, and it proved to no avail. Nothing changed. Right? You've switched people on the offensive line. Nothing's changed. So what more can you ask than to change play calling? And so I think it was a good move for Matt Nagy to he didn't give Lazor the keys to the car yet. He said you could borrow it, take a test drive for a little bit. We'll see how it goes on Monday, and then we'll go from there. He didn't completely give up play calling duties, but I think this change will be the spark that the team needs to beat Minnesota, to get a bye week, get a couple weeks of training with this new offensive coordinator, and then go back and find a way to, I would love to say compete against Green Bay, but you need to find a way to beat Green Bay so you can win the division.
Well, you know what, Sam Macho on our TR60 hotline, before Marvelous jump in, I got to tell you, man, I wish I'd talked to you maybe yesterday, because, I'm in a confidence pool. I'm in a confidence pool, 1 to 16. And, the confidence of, and I'm going to be honest with you, bro. I put a 16 down on the Minnesota Vikings. I didn't think the Bears had a chance, man. But after talking with you, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I may have made a mistake. Did I make a mistake, Sam Macho?
No, I think you made the right decision.
Thank you.
The right decision. Obviously, if the Bears wouldn't have made a change at coordinator, and also even now with Montgomery being out, now this new wrinkle at running back, they would have had no shot. They would have no shot. Dalvin Cook has been cooking these last couple of weeks. He has been balling. So defensively, yeah, we talk about how great our defense is, but we've been giving up some big plays, so Dalvin Cook is going to get his yards, point blank, period. He's been cooking. Offensively, you need something, some kind of spark, some kind of something. You usually have that in special teams with Cordell Patterson, but now a lot of teams are starting to understand that you must not kick to Cordell Patterson, so they're not kicking to him anymore, which is positive. But then positive for the other team, but the Bears have to find some kind of spark. And an offensive coordinator switch and also a new running back could be the spark that the Bears need to actually make it a game.
So this is Daniel. So what, did they put Patterson in the backfield the whole game then, or what do you think the plan is?
No. That's the worst decision you could do. So Cordell Patterson as a returner is phenomenal. I played against him year in and year out. I played against him when I was with the Bears. He was with the Vikings. I played against him when he was with the Patriots. As a returner, he is phenomenal. As a running back, he's not a running back. He's a specialist. He's a returner, and he's the best in the game. He set records, right? He's going to go down in history as a returner. But just because someone's a phenomenal returner doesn't make them a phenomenal running back or a tight end or a receiver. It just doesn't work that way. And so, no, you're not going to put Cordell Patterson in the backfield. That's not the way to go. You use Lamar Miller. Use your running backs, right? Use him. Right? Lamar Miller back in Miami, if y'all put on the film, this dude can ball. This dude could play. He went to the U. He balled at the U, then he played in Miami. So maybe with this new coach, you can say, okay, you know what? I understand we like downhill running. We love the power plays. We love people call them the drill play, right? We love these inside zones. Let's get the ball on the edge. That's what Minnesota does a great job of. If you watch Minnesota play, not only this year, but years past, they love getting the ball out on the edge. Crack tosses, sweeps. They love doing that. So I think Lazor will actually incorporate that because of his personnel.
So real quick, and we're pleased to be joined by two former Chicago Bears outside linebackers, number 51 Bruce Herron and number 93 Sam Archer on our TR60 hotline. Gentlemen, and Bruce, you go first, but gentlemen, if you guys are the Minnesota Vikings, whether you're lining up playing against the Bears tomorrow night or you're a defensive coordinator, how do you scheme against this Bears offense to win your third straight game moving forward? And of course, and more importantly, get a division victory against the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Bruce, you start.
Simple. I would just bring pressure. If every passing situation, I would bring pressure because the offensive line hasn't been doing their job, or hasn't been doing a sufficient enough job. I would just bring pressure, man. I would bring pressure every chance I got. Every chance I got. I would do it.
Sam?
Yeah. See, I would take a completely different approach. I would rush 4. And here's why. So the Minnesota D line is phenomenal, right? They pride themselves. Mike Zimmer and their defense, they pride themselves on rushing 4. Danielle Hunter, really good player. Even young players, Fadio Denebo, really good player. Their D line is really, really good. And so why bring pressure where you could beat the guys one-on-one? Beat your guys one-on-one, rush 4, right? Keep 7 guys back in coverage, and you're still going to get home. So if I'm the Vikings, the way I win this game, I keep the ball out of Cordell Patterson's hands, find a way, so make sure you don't kick it to him, number 1. And then number 2, offensively, make sure that Dalvin Cook cooks like he's been doing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, when you're trying to stop the Bears, rush 4 and win your one-on-ones. Period. If you can't win your one-on-ones against this O-line, then you shouldn't be out there.
Sounds good. So, Sam, I want to switch gears a bit, and we know that you're a former NFL linebacker, speaker, podcaster, and humanitarian, but you did write a book, Let the World See You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes, and it's interesting because I have a 12-year-old, and we were talking today because he was doing some things for the Constitution for his Boy Scout merit badge, and he was asking me about hypocrisy, and I was telling him that, hypocrisy is when you proclaim a belief, but your actions and behavior doesn't match up to it. And so in your book, you talk about inauthenticity, and I really wanted to get your opinion in terms of what made you tackle that subject of being inauthentic. It's a concept that I hadn't even considered until I really started to do work and really start to explore presence and awareness. So what led you to tackle this issue of inauthenticity?
Yeah, for me, I think just living in this world for the 30-some-odd years I've lived, I understand a lot of people live a lot longer than I have, but I've seen it not only on the football field, but in society. People love to pretend. We love to put on masks, not the literal ones, right? I know we're locking down Chicago. The figurative masks we wear to try and fit in, and whether it's because of fear or shame or doubt or anxiety, we put on these masks. And one thing, and I did the same thing. I would hide. I would pretend. I'd be in NFL locker rooms, and people know I'm a Christian, right? And I would get mad. I would get in a fight or something. They would say, well, Sam, I thought Christians were supposed to get mad. I thought, is that a curse word I just heard? Right? And all of a sudden, I would hide. I would try and act like someone I wasn't, right, to try and fit in, just as by way of example. I also got my MBA. I got my MBA from the #1 international business school in the world, but I didn't tell anybody because I thought that wasn't the thing that people wanted to hear from an NFL linebacker. And so what ends up happening with all that hiding and pretending is eventually your body keeps the score, right? Eventually you become someone that you're not. And I didn't want that for me. I didn't want that for my family. I don't want that for anyone. And so this book really talks about the freedom that comes from when you are you. Because I feel like when you're you, the world changes, right? When you're you, God gets the glory. When you're you, the people around you benefit. When you're you, the world around you thrives. But when you pretend, pretending may get you in a certain door, but being you would open up doors you could never imagine.
You know what, Sam, that's a great story. Thank you so very much for sharing that. And I do want to ask you, where'd you get your MBA from?
Yeah, so I got it from the Thunderbird School of Global Management, which it's the #1 international MBA in the world. It's actually part of Arizona State now, but it worked out because it was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was playing for the Cardinals, and it worked out perfectly. You
know what? It's interesting because we have a lot more in common than I knew. I realized that you're 32 years of age. You were born September 6, 1988, and of course you have your MBA business. And I'm proud to say that my son shares the same age. He's 32 years of age. His birthday is September 5th. A day before you, 1988, and he received his master's from the great school of Northwestern School of Kellogg Business School. So I was really humbled and pleasantly surprised when I read that and discovered that. So there's no wonder why you're doing extraordinary work in your life. The fact that you're a Christian and as important, you're an educated individual. So kudos to you, congratulations to you, and thank you so very much for sharing a part of your life with not only with me personally and our listening audience, but to the world, my good friend.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Anybody, and that's what, for me, like this, playing in the NFL was great. But this book, I think, is going to change people's lives. Like, I believe it at the deepest part of my heart that so many people are living inauthentically. And they don't know how to be real and how to be vulnerable. They don't understand the benefits of being real. It's almost like this huge weight is lifted off of your shoulders. And so anyone who wants to learn more about me or about the book, just go to samachobook.com, SAMACHO book.com, or type in Let the World See You. That's the title of the book, Let the World See You, How to Be Real in a World Full of Fakes. It's available anywhere books are sold.
Hey, Bruce Herring. Hey, man, this is one reason why we have you on. It's one reason why we have Sam on. It's one reason why we have the greatest sports show in the city of Chicago, the Rewind Sports 60, because we're real sports, real talk, just plain real. Bruce, that's how we roll, brother.
Man, yes, it is, man. I just want to say, Sam, it's a pleasure to sit here and listen to you. I've always said, even when I was playing ball, that the best thing that an NFL player could do was to make sure that he got his education. And I tell kids all the time when I talk to them at schools, either elementary schools or junior high schools or high schools, say, listen, no coach wants a dumb football player. No coach wants a dumb football player. You have to be smart. You have to get your education. And my heart is smiling right now listening to you talk, and you just you're a great example of what a true athlete is all about. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Bruce. Thank you so much. Thank you for paving the way.
That's
Absolutely.
beautiful. Beautiful. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. It is the fastest hour in sports conversation. Always a pleasure. You're definitely friends of the program. Hey, predictions for tomorrow night game, Bears, Vikings. Sam, you first.
Yeah, I think the Bears lose by 7, maybe 28-21.
Bruce?
You know what? I think that every game the Bears have played, they've had a chance to win. I'm gonna pick the Bears 23-19.
Boom! Wow! Wow! God bless you, man. You drinking the Kool-Aid for sure. Hey, Sam, real quick again.
You know what? I think our defense has got to call some turnovers and score.
Yeah, they got to.
Can do that, we'll be just fine.
They're gonna have a long night, bro. They're gonna have a long night tomorrow night. Hey, thank you, gentlemen, so much. Sam, real quick again, if people want to get a hold of the book, how do they find it?
Yeah, if you want to connect with me or get a hold of the book, go to samachobook.com, SAMACHO book.com. It's also available everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Target, Audible, audiobook, whatever you want. Type in Let the World See You, and I cannot wait to hear what you all think about this book. I'm so excited.
We'll get you back. Sam Macho, Bruce Herring, 2 former outside linebackers for your Chicago Bears. Thank you so very much, guys. Stay safe, enjoy the game, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Wow.
Isn't it beautiful? We get two guys together and they love each other.
Yeah. Well,
go Bears.
Hey, we got
Bear
3
love.
people. We got 4 people together here. We love each other. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Hey.
Real quick before we go, Serenello's. I talked to my good friend Chef Michael Bonner. We know what's going on in the state of Illinois and the resurgence as far as the COVID-19 is concerned. I think we've hit the second phase. But hey, Sunday brunch. That's where we started with them on Sunday brunch. They got it back up and running. Sunday brunch from 11 to 2. Curbside. It's only $20.95. Check them out. And of course, if you haven't made plans for Thanksgiving, they have the Thanksgiving dinner as well. It's $44.95 a person. $44.95 a person. Closing thoughts, guys.
Bears win. We need it. This is the playoffs.
Yeah, we
the
need
Vikings are on a roll,
Lord,
and that
Lord, we need it.
Ooh, if we lose, it's gonna be bad news.
Yeah, they again, the sweet spot, I've always said they need to score 20 points, and I don't know if they can. And fact check, LaRusso just turned 76 on October 4th, so he was 75 when he was pulled over.
Unbelievable. Don't drink and drive, ladies and gentlemen.
And wear a mask.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to Lauren Cox. Fantastic. Always a pleasure to see you. Thanks to the marvelous one, Dan Marver, and, of course, our fabulous producer, Devin Teagle. Jerry Riles, the Rewind Sports 60. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy your week. Go Bears. Talk to you next Sunday. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast with yours truly and, of course, the Honorable Dr. Chad Drummond. Doc, how are you this week?
Doing great, Jerry. How about you?
Doing fantastic. The winter temperatures have certainly hit us in the Midwest. We had about 7 or 8 days of great weather, 70s, close to 80 degrees. But, of course, reality has set in, and now we're hovering between 30, 40, 50-degree temperatures over the next few days. But other than that, getting ready for the holidays as far as Thanksgiving and, of course, Christmas around the corner. But all in all, feeling fantastic physically, mentally. We're always continuing to work and grow, and you help us improve our knowledge regarding sports medicine. So thank you for sure. You know, Doc, many of us who've been big fans of the sports world, of course, we've been really happy and pleased that the National Football League has been able to get to 9 weeks of play this fall season, which many of us didn't think was going to happen because of the pandemic and COVID. But lo and behold, we've made it to the 9th week, halfway point as far as the National Football League is concerned. The Bears are struggling, going in the opposite direction. They got a Monday night affair, but the things that go along with the sports, aside from the pandemic, are injuries, and we see with the Chicago Bears the number of injuries that the offensive linemen have sustained, and even a backup quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, with the shoulder injury, what we talked about last week. But we haven't had an opportunity to touch on the special teams and, more importantly, the kicking aspect of the game. And I'd like to say Sierra Santos, but Cairo Santos is doing a fantastic job as the kicker for the Chicago Bears, replacing Eddie Pinheiro, who won the job last year. And Eddie, as we know, is still out with a groin injury. And, it piques my interest. And, of course, I'm sure many of those who are watching and listening to this fabulous podcast that we do weekly, the groin injury. Tell us a little bit about this injury, because not only professional athletes, they get this, but runners get it, amateur athletes get it. What's the cause of groin injury, and is it preventable?
Yeah, so the groin injury, it's the adductor muscle, ADDUCTOR. It's the muscle in the inner part of the thigh that brings your legs together. It's big. There's several of them, the adductor magnus and adductor longus and other ones. Is it preventable? So here's the thing. So I'm 66, been out there following sports forever. And there has been a sea change in the number of groin and hamstring strains. And as we were discussing before we got on the air, people just didn't used to get these. Now it's very difficult to find an athlete who's been playing for a while that doesn't get one. A lot of times it's speed guys. So the thing with kickers is, the groin muscle for a soccer style, everybody these days is a soccer style kicker. Didn't used to be. Soccer style, it's kind of interesting. It isn't that you can kick the ball any longer. The thought is that you're more accurate. But either way, the groin muscle. So what has happened is that people say, well, gee, if the groin muscle, if the adductor muscle is kind of the key muscle, then we are going to make you a better performer, and we're going to make you less prone to injury by doing two things. We're going to stretch it, and we're going to strengthen it. And I would propose to you that it's a mistake. That the idea, I think that the conditioning programs are entirely at the root of the dramatic increase in hamstring injuries. You know, we were talking before we got in the air. You look at great athletes from Walter Payton, the great Walter Payton, played, you know, I don't know how many years, more than 10, missed one game. And that was the dislocated toe, and he didn't even want to miss it, right? So did he miss a game with a groin or hamstring? No. The great Gale Sayers, before he blew out his knee, did he miss a game? No. Michael Jordan, Karl Malone. Look at all these guys, all these long streaks. None of these people, these injuries used to be pretty much non-existent. Now they're just ubiquitous. And I mean, how many people get, hammy strains? I was reading about is it John Ross, who has the fastest 40 combine number, 4.22, for example. Right. So his fourth year, people talking about how he might be traded. But these guys, he's a track guy, and he's had, I think, a fair number of these muscle strains. But, I mean, think back Willie Gault, track guy with the Bears, right? One of the fastest guys ever to play. And who was faster than Willie Gault? Willie Gault, when he played, was widely regarded as the second fastest guy in the NFL. Who was the fastest guy? So
Ronaldo Skeets Nehemiah with the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, maybe him. But for guys that really played, that's good thought. But Darrell Green with the Redskins, cornerback, played till he was pretty old, 30s maybe, Yeah. So track guys. These guys just didn't used to miss time, And so what I'm saying is just this. And what's interesting about this is, and I'm in the industry. I'm in the business. I employ physical therapists. We do these conditioning programs, but we don't do that. And there is really not good evidence that stretching or strengthening prevents injuries. But even more importantly, there isn't really good evidence that it helps performance. So here's what happened. I mean, I have no inside information. I go by what I read in the papers. But Cairo Santos kicked this 55-yarder, right? Clutch field goal. Well, that's a pretty long kick, right? Well, Cairo Santos has publicly written he missed a lot of time with a groin, and he said when he came back, he did less. He pushed it less, the groin. So less is more. Now, you could say, well, gee, he's not strengthening it or doing as much, so maybe he's going to lose range. Well, I don't know. He's a 55-yarder, and I saw the kick. It would have been good for 56, 57. It's not like it hit the crossbar. So I'd say if you were accurate out to 55, that's pretty good range, right? So what my point is, you don't need to stretch and strengthen, and I'm talking about legs now, to get good performance. Now, I'm talking about speed guys, and I'm not talking about bulk people. So if you're an interior lineman, those guys need to strengthen because they need to be big and they need to be powerful. And if they get hurt, they get hurt. But the thing is, the ability to kick a ball far, the ability to run fast, is based on fast twitch muscle fibers. So there's two kinds of muscle fibers: slow twitch, fast twitch. Type 1 is slow twitch. Type 2 is fast twitch. So red meat and white meat in a chicken. Okay, white meat is fast twitch, and the chicken breast is the wing muscle, so the wings have to beat fast. The dark meat is slow twitch. It's dark because it has hemoglobin, which allows you to get more endurance. So the slow twitch are more endurance, fast twitch are more speed. But here's the point: that is genetically determined. So sprinters are born; they're not made. Maybe at the outside it can affect your speed a little bit, but sprinters, leapers, kickers, they're born, they're not made. You have to choose your parents well, So what I'm saying is that you take somebody who's got fast twitch muscle fibers, just let them run. If you start to work too much to build up their muscles, you just promote injuries. Same with kickers. Now, I will tell you, this position that I'm saying is not a majority position. And the reason it isn't is because there's such a huge industry that's built around building these people up. But I can tell you it's based on negligible science. And if you look at the difference, we've talked about this before, throwers, right? Pitchers used to pitch forever. I think I told you about a conversation I had with Fergie Jenkins. 300 innings every year, never got hurt, right? Now, if guys do 200 innings, they're an Ironman. And they throw a little harder. But the question is, does a couple miles an hour on your fastball or 2 yards on a kick matter? And I would argue that it doesn't. But I think the conditioning just destroys these muscles and these, and these joints. So getting back to the kickers, it's just kind of an interesting thing. So we got these two guys playing musical kickers back and forth, both of them with groin strains. The answer that Cairo Santos came up with is to do less. Just leave it the heck alone. And look at him. Look how well he's doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's certainly doing well, but some would argue and say, well, one reason he's lightening up a little bit or pulling back a little bit is the fact that, and this happens to all of us, where we overcompensate for one side of our body to protect the other side in our mindset. And some would say, well, maybe he's pulling back just a tad bit because he does not want to re-injure that or have that injury occur again. So he's found, fundamental ways or mechanical ways to more or less get the same results. And of course, he's experienced, so he should have some type of understanding of how he should go into kicking a ball. And for instance, he shared recently in an interview the difference between kicking, and we talked about the 55-yarder that he kicked. I think it was against the New Orleans Saints to send the game into overtime. But he talked about the difference of kicking the ball, the height of the ball compared to the distance, meaning a lower trajectory to get more control over the football. So I would imagine that from his entry into the National Football League to I think this is his 8th season now, he's learned something, what we call a veteran, of how to get more results by doing less. What would you say regarding that analogy based on what we know about?
No, you're absolutely right. And the whole point of it is this. The way you get results, you need two things. You need the right genes, you need the right parents, and you need technique. And the only two reasons to condition are, number one, you think if you build up the muscle even more, take a bigger swing even more, you get a little more distance. Or number two, you think it's going to prevent injuries. And what I'm saying is that if you do get more distance, it's negligible and doesn't really matter. And the preventing injuries, I just think doesn't happen.
Hey, so
I think it does the reverse.
So here's the interesting question, because when Eddie Pinheiro, who was the starting kicker, he won the job last year for the Chicago Bears. When it was reported that he had the groin injury, it was back during the summer. There wasn't any preseason, obviously, due to the pandemic and everything, but it was projected that he would miss 3 to 5 weeks because of the injury, and meant the first 2 or 3 games at the most. But now, as I stated, starting off this podcast, we're in week 9 of the National Football League, and of course, with the bye week, that's 10 weeks out since August. What is the recovery time?
Well,
and does it matter if you're because the Bears told us 3 to 5 weeks, and we're well into 10 weeks now. What is the recovery time? Well,
let me say this. I don't know this for a fact, but it is widely reported that he has lost the job absent an injury to Cairo Santos. So, I just kind of assumed, and I don't know this, that he's probably better now, but they're just keeping him there because they wanted to have, a backup kicker who was healthy. They had Kai Forbath, was that his name? Mm-hmm. Who they tried to stash, and then he was picked up by somebody, San Francisco maybe. So what I'm saying is the fact that he's on injured reserve doesn't mean he's not healed, actually, because if he does get healed and brought off, he's, I don't think they're giving him the job from what I've read. But to answer your question as to how long it can heal, so I will tell you, it can take a long time. I'm not a big soccer follower, great sport, but there was somebody, man, I can't remember, that I followed the saga of about 7-8 years ago, who went almost 2 years, these chronic muscle strains, and it was like one season, part of another season. So these things can go on for a long time. So he very well could be not recovered. It just all depends on how serious the injury was. And I will tell you, I think it depends upon the rehab program. And, in my world, when I get these injuries, we do actually low-level laser treatments, which have been remarkably effective for this, which actually do help it heal. But we don't do stretching and we don't do strengthening. And there is paradigms out there that say that that stretching can help. I don't think it does. I think the muscle is injured, and when you pull on an injured thing, I think you make it worse. So I'm not criticizing those who do this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would say that my opinion, you cannot go wrong leaving it alone. Actually, a basic core belief of mine also is that Mother Nature rocks. Nature just does a fabulous job of healing us. And in my opinion, you're always better to just leave it alone, let nature heal it, unless you as a health provider have overwhelming evidence that you can make it better. And I think all too often, especially in sports medicine, that the athletes are circled by providers who just like dealing with athletes. And there's a great urge to do something. You just can't leave it alone because you should be doing therapy. You should be doing rehab. And I think it's often a mistake. So, my world, it's benign neglect. And we get people back pretty quickly, I think. So, but it's hard to say. Maybe it's not healed. It can take weeks. It can take months. It can take longer.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that it depends on the particular individual? As you talked about earlier, the different specimens, Walter Payton, Michael Jordan, those Gale Sayers, those particular athletes who never really sustained or outside of Gale, the serious injuries. So are you saying basically that athletes, these injuries, this type of injury can vary from person to person based on their genetic makeup?
Well, sort of, but here's what I'm saying. When I was talking about those people, what my point was that now it's like predictably every year, so-and-so is out with a hammy. It's going to be a while, and then they get back, and then they're out again. We're just like used to it. And you didn't used to see it. So what I'm saying is Gale Sayers, it isn't the serious, because these aren't serious injuries. These are nagging injuries. So what I'm saying is that Walter Payton, and everybody famously knows, he used to run up that hill. It's functional stuff, great stuff, and he didn't get these kinds of injuries. I'm sure he got dinged up a little, but never enough to miss a game ever. It's amazing, right? Gale Sayers too. And I remember when he played, maybe he missed a little time, but I don't remember missing, he had the catastrophic injury. And I'm just saying all these guys, Michael Jordan, like I said, Karl Malone had this long streak, all these guys. And so my point is not that it's dependent on the individual, although it is a little, and I'll tell you where we know it is, but is that it's dependent on the conditioning regimen. And what I'm saying is that now the people, like I've mentioned before, James Thornton, Bears tight end, who did get called RoboCop because he was so ripped, right? Well, everybody looks like RoboCop now. And what I'm saying is that I think that we have these injuries because of overly aggressive conditioning. That's my point. Now, you said, does it vary among individuals? One thing that has been shown is that people with more fast twitch fibers, sprinters, are a little more prone. Those muscles are a little more prone to strains. So sprinters are a little more prone to hamstring strains than a guy like me who can't run at all, right? So my hamstring is pretty much all dark meat. I don't have a fast twitch fiber in there probably. So those are endurance athletes, right? So the people with fast twitch fibers, the speed guys, are a little more prone to it. But I think that factor is insignificant by comparison to the fact that I think people are predisposed because of conditioning. And that's why I brought up the example of Willie Gault and Darryl Green, and you didn't hear about these guys missing lots of time with hamstring strains, and these are speed guys. These are two of the fastest guys in the history of the NFL, actually, right? For that matter, Bo Jackson, it was before. So John Ross, as the fastest official time now is 4.22, but Bo Jackson was clocked at 4.11, I think, in a 40. Not exactly official.
Yeah, right? I don't know. 4.11.
Yeah, he was at a sub 4.2. If you look him up, look at the fastest time, right? So Bo Jackson, he's a big guy, right? He's not your little track guy, but ridiculously fast. But Bo Jackson got his hip dislocated, catastrophic, and that's kind of my point. Gale Sayers had a catastrophic injury. Basically an ACL, multi-ligament injury. So these guys would miss time because of catastrophic injuries, but they weren't missing time because of being dinged up. Even the track guys, that's my point. They weren't getting these little strains. But these guys, Bo Jackson didn't run off Herschel Walker. He was 4.3 something, right? Another kind of a Bo Jackson-esque guy, right? He's a 200 and, big guy, 215, 20-pound guy running a sub 4.4. You know, these guys would get. And Herschel Walker, I don't know if he ever got a catastrophic injury. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying these nagging things didn't happen, and it's so frustrating now. Every sport, right? Athletes are just missing time all the time because of nagging injuries, and I'm absolutely convinced it's because of Bob Feller. Bob Feller through probably high 90s, hard to say exactly, right? He was a fireballer from his day. He didn't miss time. None of these guys missed time. You know what I mean? Sandy Koufax. One of the only guys, fireball guy who did, and when he did, it was unusual. They talked about his arthritic elbow. I don't know exactly what his problem was, but my whole point is that work on technique, and if you got the right genes with the right technique, just exactly as you were saying with Cairo Santos, you'll be a good kicker. But when you start to want to build yourself up into something you're not, I think it goes in reverse.
Well, there are two things that come to mind here, Doc, and we're in different times and different eras, and there's always arguments from, the past to, the present. And maybe one reason that we didn't hear a lot about these, lingering nagging injuries is the fact that a lot of these athletes back in the day, and we know, they had concussions on the sidelines on football games, and they were given the smelling sauce and told to get back out there. I've had former players who told me the coach will put, fingers up in their face and say, "How many fingers do you see?" And they say a number, and they say, "Well, okay, you're fine. Get back out there." I guess the point I'm trying to make is the fact that maybe we didn't hear so much about these recurring and nagging injuries is the fact that they weren't reported on, and / these athletes were given some sort of medication numbing the injuries to get back out there and play. Whereas today, because of the economics and the amount of money that's being spent on these athletes, these owners don't want their athletes on the shelf unless they most certainly have to be there. Hence, when they go, they say, "Hey, he's suffering a groin injury. He's suffering this injury," because they want to protect their players. You talk about the pitchers and the elevated numbers with Fergie Jenkins compared to the numbers today. We know that the rotator cuff injuries have increased over the past years because you and I remember growing up, we never even heard of rotator cuff injury, a Tommy John surgery. But now it's like every given year, multiple pitchers are undergoing Tommy John surgery. But I'm going to argue the economics is the reason why we see these medical terms surfacing now, because the owners want to protect their product.
That's a great point, and it's true for some injuries. So, for example, here's the thing. You can play through a concussion, but you really can't play through a bad hamstring or groin strain because you can't run. If you can't run and you're limping, and these guys weren't limping, so you can play through a concussion. Bad idea, but you can. They did. Other things are contusions, rib injuries, right? So people used to get shot up all the time. And, of course, there was that unfortunate I was surprised it was still happening, actually. The Chargers quarterback, is Tyrod Taylor? Is that his name? I'm not sure. I might have that wrong. But who now yeah, so he got the rib injection. We talked about it. People know about it. The doctor accidentally punctured his lung, and he's going to be okay. But in the meantime, he's lost his job because in the time he was out, the high draft pick has done well. So contusions, bruises, rib things, concussions you can play through. But these guys were not playing. And, as far as can you shoot up a muscle, I mentioned several weeks ago the humorous, except it's kind of unfortunate example of Chris Chelios got injected by a member of the medical staff of the Blackhawks in a groin, trying to play through a groin. And he did a numbing shot, and the numbing shot unfortunately got the obturator nerve, and I think it was the obturator nerve, maybe the femoral nerve. But anyway, so his leg, he did a nerve block, so his leg buckled, so he couldn't play. But what I'm saying is, if you try to shoot up a hamstring and play through it, you'll just rip it even more.
Right.
And if you just suck it up and try to play, you can't do it. You can't run. I mean, you might try, but if you're a speed guy, if Walter Payton or Gale Sayers or any of these guys have one of those and they can't run, I mean, forget about it. Everybody would know it. So those injuries weren't being played through because you can't. But you're right. A lot of them where you could were.
So there's a lot of information there, and I'm sure there are a lot of people watching and listening to this podcast wondering, so one, what do I do if I'm a weekend warrior out there to prevent myself? Because you have a lot of people that they still get out there and they play soccer on, Saturday mornings or, whatever the case may be, indoor soccer at some facilities around the Chicagoland area. There are people that are wondering, again, how do I prevent myself from getting this thing? And again, if I do get a groin injury, am I good to go, after a few weeks of rest?
Yeah, so great question. So the answer is pretty simple. Takes a little discipline, though. First of all, you mentioned weekend warrior. So there's a thing called the weekend warrior syndrome. What that means is somebody does nothing all week, and then the weekend goes nuts and gets hurt, and then comes back into sore and then does nothing, and you just never get in condition. So the first thing is anything that you're going to be starting. If you're going to go out and play soccer, go out and kick a ball around a little. And so do the activity in a very measured way every 48 hours. There's a thing called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So if you work muscles hard you haven't worked, often you won't be sore that day or the next day, but 48 hours later you will. So you're a soccer player, just go out well in advance of the season, kick a ball around, just get your legs back, gradually increase the intensity and frequency, and then play. So should you strengthen those muscles in anticipation of? I would argue no. Should you stretch them? No. There's really not good data on stretching preventing injuries. In fact, there are studies now showing that hamstring stretching can cause injuries. And I've seen a couple in my office in the last few months. One guy pulled the hamstring right off the ischial bone doing aggressive hamstring stretching. And you see, I'll tell you something else that happens, a corollary to this. If you're tight, people say, oh my gosh, you're really tight, so you have to stretch. So here's the thing. We all have different body types. And it's been found now that people with loose ligaments sometimes have tight tendons, as though nature is protecting the loose ligaments with the tight tendons. So you can stretch a little, but don't overdo, But so I'm not a big fan. So the main thing is ease into things gradually, do functional things. It's not a weightlifting thing. Do functional activities. If you're a basketball player, play some hoops. If you're a quarterback, throw a little. If you're a pitcher, throw a little. And just increase it gradually because your body will adapt, but it doesn't do it overnight. So give yourself plenty of time every other day, gradually increase. And then, as you said, at the first sign of pain, just stop. The no pain, no gain thing is just wrong. And if your body will warn you, it will whisper in your ear. And if you have a little pain, it'll say, you should stop a little. And then if you ignore it, it will shout and give you more pain and say, you better stop. And then if you ignore that, it'll rip the muscle apart and say, look, buddy, you ignored me at your peril. You know what I mean? So just gradually prepare, do functional things. At the first sign of pain, stop. Another huge part, and I'll tell you, anybody who's interested, our website is ismoc.net, Illinois Sports Medicine Orthopedic Center.net. So ismoc.net. On there, I have a little treatise that I wrote called No Pills, No Pain. And it says that the worst thing you can do, if you get a little tweak, the worst thing you can do is do something to treat the pain. That pain is there for a reason. It's your friend. It tells you what to do, what not to do. The minute you start taking Motrin or Advil or even Tylenol or putting ice on it or putting Bengay or Icy Hot or Lidoderm patches or, God forbid, cortisone injections, you mask the pain. And the people that I see in my office who are the most messed up are the ones who had a little pain and ignored it and took a Motrin and allowed it to get to become a big pain. So you just leave it the heck alone. The problem with what I'm saying is, there's two problems with it. Number one, it's frustrating because you're out there playing ball and you want to play. And then, so I'm saying don't take a Motrin, just back off. And you say, but I want to play, And this pill makes you feel so good. But it's a deal with the devil, as they used to say, right? It'll just make you worse. The other thing that's wrong with it, quite honestly, is that, health providers like to provide health. That's what we do. Right. And we kind of hover. And so, and I've been through this with well-meaning athletic trainers, physical therapists, and I'll get somebody and preach rest, team physician, and they just want to do something because they're really helpful people. And so what happens is that sometimes the potential benefits of the treatments are maybe a little oversold because the people doing them really believe in them, and you should have just left it the heck alone. And, it's hard the patient wants you to do something. And if a provider is saying they can help, whether or not it's backed up in science, more often than not, they're going to go for it, you know? So what I'm saying is not what people want to hear, but it works.
Well, you know, it's interesting because you're absolutely right. And the direction that we're going, the new era that we're in, you know, they'll always talk about, and we've heard this, Doc, you know, athletes now today are bigger, faster, and stronger. And so when you talk about stretching and weight training, you know, it's encouraged, especially on Division I level of athletics and professional ranks. If you can just do one more set of curls, or if you could do one more set of, you know, bench press or leg press, you're getting an edge on your competition. And I think that's the demon that many of these athletes, because it trickles down to the layperson, again, the weekend warrior, to say, hey, if I just push it a little bit more, I'm going to have that one little extra edge over my competitor next to me. How do you attack that?
Well, you're absolutely right. That it is psychology of it. The thing that it depends who you are. Like I said, you know, if you're going to be a down lineman, we've talked about this before. You've got to be huge, and you've got to be powerful, and you've got to weight train big time. And then, you know, if you've got the right genes, you survive. If you don't have the right genes, you don't. But I would argue that for things that are more based in skill, that you don't run any faster, or if you do, it's not faster enough to make a difference. You know, you're a speed guy, or you're not. That for people with skill, I would argue that that weight training is going to make you more prone to injury. You know, to the running back, to the wide receiver, to the quarterback. You know, to the shortstop. And, you know, there again, too, I mean, I understand now the second baseman, the home runs are up, so the guys are all bulked up. I mean, you know, so be it, I guess. But depends who you want to be. If you want to be a speed guy that hits home runs, maybe an Ian Happ, you know, great ball player, right? Strong guy. Second baseman didn't use, unless it was Ernie Banks. But actually, Ernie Banks, there you go. Now, there's a great example, right? So Ernie Banks, 500-plus home runs, you know, 2-time MVP for a losing team. He's a shortstop. And Ernie Banks, I don't know what he weighed, but he was, you know, probably 170 pounds or something, right? But so I grew up watching Ernie Banks and his hands on the bat. So Ernie Banks flicked his wrist. He had great technique, right? So how many home runs do you need to hit as a shortstop? You know, well, he hit more than anybody, at least to that point. I don't know if anybody's got more yet, actually. And of course, he changed positions. So, so what I'm saying is, unless you're, you know, I remember Dave Corzine on the Bulls, DePaul guy, center, talented guy. And I remember when he came there, the thought was, well, what's going to be his niche? And I remember him saying, you know, people told me, well, you know, that was before the, you know, the stretch 4 or 5 kind of guys, but he wasn't super agile, maybe good athlete, you know. So he said, I got to be big, I got to be strong. So he bulked up a little and got strong. So for him, that's probably a good choice, you know. But what I'm saying is that, you know, so maybe a low post player in you know, in basketball, maybe, you know, for sure the down lineman in football, those guys have to be huge.
Right.
But the other guys, I think that it's really a two-edged sword, and you should err much more on the side of technique. You know, the best argument, I brought this up before too, in baseball, right? So the argument is the guys throw harder now than they did. And they do. But guys threw pretty hard before too. And so the Greg Maddux, great quote, and I can't quote it exactly, but Greg Maddux once said that Roger Clemens and I pitched the same. He just does it at a higher speed.
Right.
And so his point was Roger Clemens was throwing whatever he threw, 95, you know, and Greg Maddox's fastball, I don't know what it was, 80s maybe, you know. But Greg Maddox's thing was he had control and he changed speeds, right? So his point was, you know, there's flamethrowers out there who throw 100 and not that much happens. So I would argue that there's too much emphasis on, you know, measurables like that. And a guy who can throw 92, I think, can be just as effective as a guy that throws 97 if he can change speeds, has good control, you know?
Sure.
And these injuries are clearly the result. There's more torque on the guys are bigger and stronger. from conditioning that, number one, adversely have put stress on the elbow, and number two, the torque on the joint is greater because they're throwing harder, and you destroy your elbow. Now, Steven Strasburg, right? I guess you could argue it worked out okay, right? I don't know what he throws, 102 or something. And, he was, when he first came in, I mean, everybody was saying, like, when's he going to get his Tommy John, And he did. Right. But he's come back, and he's done well. So I guess you could, I don't know. If he didn't throw 102, would he be as good a pitcher? I don't know. I think maybe, but people get impressed by this stuff.
Yeah, they certainly do. And they're impressed with the sports medicine update with Dr. Chad Fadromas. Doc, you know what? Next week, or definitely, let's dive into, if we don't have any other major breaking stories that are taking place, let's dive a little bit into the Tommy John surgery, because as we talked about when we were growing up or years ago, you didn't hear anything about it, obviously. And then, over the past 10 years, I would say the numbers have trended to the upside with major league pitchers. And you talked about Steven Strasburg. He was pulled. By the Nets, and he got the surgery. But more pitchers, even with the Chicago White Sox, there are pitchers around the league nowadays who are undergoing Tommy John surgery, and a lot of them said they're bouncing back and pitching better. So let's dig into that a little bit more next time around as far as the sports medicine update is concerned. You've given the information before, but we'd like for you to share it again. If anyone has any interest in getting in contact with you and learning more about the sports medicine update and just sports medicine and handling injuries, how do they get a hold of you, Doc?
So our phone is 847-699-6810. You'll get a live person on the other end. Our website is, our email actually is ortho@ismoc.net. So just ortho@ismoc.net, and we will answer any inquiries that we get.
Sounds good. Dr. Chad Fadromas, always a pleasure, always insightful and educational. We really appreciate it. And we want to say, hey, we get out there, let's be safe, let's be injury-free, and let's have some fun. Dr. Chad Fadromas, thank you so very much. We'll talk to you next week.
Jerry, thank you so much. Likewise.
This offensive line that the Bears had to plug in there, they didn't even get an opportunity to practice this week. Again, the facilities were closed up at Hallis on Thursday, I believe, and they're just picking guys from the trees anywhere they can to plug in places just to have a starting offensive front up there. And unfortunately, these guys, they were beside themselves. I think you, me, Devin Tingle, Nick back here, Paul Shivari, I think we would have done at least a better job as offensive line for the Chicago Bears. And here's the deal.
I'd be in my backside. But
no, it's okay. It's okay. You would have been doing better than those guys, believe me. But here's the deal. Listen, they're not as talented. The Bears are the worst in the league. They're not as talented. They are not as talented. And here's the deal. When you lack talent, this is what I used to do. When I started getting older in age, right, and I was playing basketball, and I saw the younger whippersnappers running around me on the court, right, I was like, damn, this guy's fast. He's quick. He's this and that. So what I would do, this is simple. You just, when a little guy is running past you, you kind of tug on the shirt and pull him to slow him down a little bit, or you cut your angle and give him a little bump to slow him down to try to prevent him from taking advantage of you and exploiting you. That's what I think the Bears' offensive line need to do. Just technique.
Right.
Fundamentals, get back to the basics. Fundamentals, technique, your footwork, your hands, your angles, and then take a little pride in what you're doing. Say, this guy's kicking my ass left and right. It's not going to happen anymore. That's all you have to do, and just stick with it for 60 minutes. For some reason, it's not sinking in, Marvelous.
Yeah, well, you watch a lot of other teams, and you see that there's some things that might be called holding that aren't called. So you might as well
here's
work
the deal.
within the rules.
Yeah,
if you can.
Yeah, I mean, listen. They've already taken the exception to the next level as far as penalties are concerned.
Right.
The most penalized team in the National Football League. They show that they can pick up some penalties. They no question about that.
Okay.
But listen, if you're out there, and I get it, and you need help sometimes, you do need. And I've never played line or any part in the National Football League. Our Nets Gex has, and he will tell us. But to me, man, you getting your ass kicked, you got to find a way to slow it down or stop it. And basic fundamentals, your footwork, your angles, your hands, I'm not, because they've already penalized 116,000 times this season, and we don't need that anymore. But evidently, it's getting to that point. And I point the finger at the coaching staff. Again, I feel for Matt Nagy, but some of these things that are happening in the football games, you gotta iron it out. And I get tired of hearing it. Well, we gotta watch film. Yes, I'm tired of the film deal, because evidently, I don't know, maybe you guys are watching Charlie Brown and the Peanuts and the Great Pumpkin. Maybe you're watching Donald Duck. Maybe you're watching the Flintstones. I don't know what kind of film you're watching, because you're not watching the same film that we're watching on Sunday afternoon when we see you guys getting your ass kicked up and down the football field. Because if you guys were watching the same film that we're watching during the live coverage of it, you would say, hey, wait a minute. This shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. These guys should do this. These guys should do that. And then you get out on the frickin' football field and you do a walkthrough, and then you go, okay, let's go half speed. But it's conditioning. And you shouldn't have all these penalties. You shouldn't. And this isn't the first game that this has happened in. This isn't the first season that this has happened in. This has been happening repeatedly for the past 2.5 years. So, to me, it comes down to the coaching staff. It comes down to the coaching staff. And I understand the players have a role to play in this as well. I understand that the players have to execute the plays that are put in front of them. But if they're not doing it, as a coach, you got to say, wait a minute, numbskull, knucklehead, listen, get your hands up, move your feet, get this done, and do that. Or you're going to be on the bench, or you're going to get a pink slip, and you're going to be out of here. Yeah, it's simple.
Well, today they only had 5 penalties for 35 yards. Maybe they should try harder and push the envelope even.
Folks, we go out to the DR60 hotline. I love this guy. He is fantastic. He's a part of the Rewind Sports 60 family. He's a former Chicago Bear, former 10-year veteran in the National Football League, known as the 17th letter in the alphabet. He's on our DR60 hotline. Q, Quentin Demps joining us. Q, what's up, man? How are you?
Jerry, what's good? What's up, Marvelous?
Hey, how you doing? You're quite a ramper. I didn't know that. Are you gonna be on get some rewards for this?
I don't know, man. I just create music.
Okay.
Very good music. You lead in. You open up the show, brother. So good stuff, good work, and keep it up. And we're looking for some more stuff. Before we get into the Bear game, who's the other cat on the soundtrack with you?
Oh, a guy named Mac Buddy.
Mac Buddy. So Mac Buddy, let me say this, because my good friend Dr. Gerard McClendon has been wanting me to ask you this for quite some time. Does he say sports is the only politic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sports is the only politics, Marvelous.
Really? Marvelous
doesn't want to really talk about politics right now.
Let's talk. I don't care. What do you want to talk? What do you want to know?
No, it's very. We want to know if the dude that just lost, if he's gonna, barricade himself in the White House. But that's another time for another show.
Right.
But yeah, hey man, great stuff. But as far as this Bears debacle is concerned, they fall 24-17, and now they're 5-4, and right now they're looking up as far as trying to get in the playoff race. What is your assessment from what you were able to witness earlier this afternoon down in Tennessee?
Jerry, I'm a defensive guy, man. So I'm going, man. I think it's back to the fundamentals, like you said, man. We did a poor job of tackling, man. We gave up too many big plays, man, when we need the stops the most, man. And my guy Eddie Jackson had a bad day. It just wasn't a good day for him. The offense is gonna be the offense, man. They're gonna be inconsistent, but on the defensive side, we gotta be consistent every game. Like we can't give up big plays like that, man. We know what kind of offense we got, so we gotta keep the big plays off of us, especially if they come from tackling, like missing tackles. Like we gotta just tackle a few times, man, and minimize some of those games, man. So I didn't like the way the defense played today.
Yeah, there were a couple plays, Q, that the defense kind of got they got shook up. I think it was the big play A.J. Brown that made for the touchdown. That was a huge play, but I think he also had another catch, and it was a 38-yard gain, I believe it was. But the fact is, when he made the reception, he picked up, I think, an additional 23 yards on the play, and he juked. Yeah. He juked half the defense. I think Kyle Fuller was over there. I think your boy Eddie Jackson got juked out of his jock strap. I was like, damn. I
mean, he had 4 receptions for 101 yards.
Yeah. I mean, he go ahead.
Like, because say what you want about the offense, they scored 17 points in the fourth quarter, Jerry.
That is true.
17 points in the fourth quarter, man. So on defense, if we stop them like at least twice, 2 of those touchdowns, we might win the game.
Well, if
we tackle a little bit better, we might win the game. It won't be 7 points; it'll be 3 points instead of. If we tackle a little bit better. So I just see it like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we played really good on defense.
So what are you saying? Are you saying that Danny Trevathan and Kyle Fuller and Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, all those guys are saying on the plane ride back, they're looking at each other and say, "Hey, man, we understand what our offense is like, and we know that they're behind the 8 ball, and we got to try to bail them out. We didn't play as effective as a unit that we're capable of playing." Is that kind of the conversation you would suspect that they're having now?
Not at all.
What kind of conversation are they having?
We need some help.
The defense. I'm talking about the defense.
Yeah, I know. We need some help, but again, this is me. This is my perspective. I feel like that defense, should be more about themselves versus like. I'm not saying they point a finger. I'm just saying, like, I'm sure the guys that are in the trenches feel like, if the offense give us a little bit more, we'd be fine. But I'm on the outside looking in. What I see is like, bro, the fundamentals, man, just tackle. And you guys just tackle and keep the big plays up off you, man. You guys would like it'll be 17-17 before we know it.
The backbreaker.
Yeah, that's just how I feel.
Yeah, I think the backbreaker was the fumble recovery. Honestly, that made it 17-0. That where they were in Titans territory and they gave the ball up and it went the other way for 63 yards. Desmond King the second. Mm-hmm. That was when it was time to rake leaves.
Oh, jeez. So Q, are you saying basically not that they need help on the defensive side of the ball, they need help as a whole team, as meaning that the offense has to supply some type of support, some type of help to pick up their phase of the 3-phase game that's being played. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, but Chicago Bears are known for defense, man. We can't sit around and just be like, oh, with offense got to do better. We got to be the shutdown defense. We know we are. Like we gotta be that every week. There's no except we can't be inconsistent. They can be. That's just because that's gonna be them. We got to be dominant every week.
We're on with Quentin Demp, former Chicago Bear on our TR60 hotline, former 10-year veteran of the National Football League, talking Bears fall to the Tennessee Titans by a final score of 24-17. Their 3rd straight loss, looking up with the 5-4 slate in the NFC North. How long, Q, before the defense? I mean, because here's the deal, and I hate this phrase, but it's true. These professional athletes are human too, right? I hate when I hear that phrase, but it is true. At what point during the season, man, do these guys on the defensive side of the ball start looking side-eye, whether it's at Nick Foles, whether it's at the offensive line, whether it's the coaching staff, because these guys they're playing their asses off. They really are. I mean, and Akeem Hicks is balling out there. Khalil Mack got the Tannehill, a couple times. I even think that they missed a late hit that Khalil Mack put on Tannehill. At what point in time during the season, if this thing continues to snowball, does the defense start looking at these guys and say, "Hey, man, what can we do? What else can we do?"
right around Thanksgiving. To be honest with you, right around Thanksgiving, if something don't start. I mean, if you lose division games like this, it's gonna be some smoke in the city. It's gonna start. I mean, it won't be because they got a good locker room, so it won't be blatant, but it's gonna, you'll start to feel the tension on the sides. You know what I mean? It'd be like, bro, come on now, y'all. It's still getting too late in the season. Like, you know what I mean? It's still kind of early. There's a lot of football left, but right around Thanksgiving, man, you gotta, we gotta know who we are. We gotta know how we're gonna win these games. We can't be still guessing on what it's gonna be.
And you know what? You bring up a great point, because the big question mark as far as this 2020 team is concerned is the fact that many of us don't see an identity with this football team.
Right.
What do you have to say about that? Because, I mean, and you're right, Chicago's known as defense. It's a black and blue division, and what we grew up with, and, defense is king. What type of team do you see this being, the identity that they have? Or do they even have one yet?
I don't know what kind of offense it is. Like, I don't know if it's running gun. I don't know if it's, I'm not sure. I think the verdict's still out on the offense. Really, like, are they going to sling the ball? Are they going to run it? Or like, what are they going to do? What is it? What kind of offense is it, really? What kind of quarterback do we have? I think the verdict is still out on Foles. Like, is he going to be inconsistent the whole year? Or, like, is he going to be that, that consistent guy that we thought he was going to be? Like I said, man, we got to Thanksgiving, man, to really figure out what the Bears are going to be.
No, that's going to be pretty interesting to see, and it's going to be very difficult. Their next game is on Monday night, as the Marvel said, against the Minnesota Vikings. So they do have some time to try to, right the ship, so to speak. But again, I'm tired of them talking about, hey, man, we're gonna seriously when they're watching film, man. I mean, seriously, it's just talking, bro. Are they watching like the Flintstones or Popeye the Sailor, or what are they watching? Because it can't be the same film that we see on Sunday nights or whatever the case may be, man. What kind of film are they watching when they always talking about, we got to watch the film? What are they watching? Eating popcorn and sucking down Dr. Pepper? What are they doing, bro?
They're just watching more the details, man. More the down and distance, more of the offensive lineman stance, what he gave away. What you saw here, what you thought there. How does that match up to what happened during the week? At practice. Just stuff like that. Like, it's more to it than play versus play. It's like, what are the giveaways? What was this? What was this hit? What was this? You know what I mean? So it's just like a lot of the details are being watched. You know what I mean? To see what they saw, what you were thinking here, and stuff like that, man. Because like you said, we all humans. Like, so stuff comes up during the game where we're like, oh wow, I see why you did that. I know that may have hurt us, but I see why you did that. That was actually pretty smart.
So I mean, they would also, Q, I assume, tell them when they did something that wasn't so smart that needs to be corrected. Right. And that seems to be the problem. And week after week, the coach is saying, it's on him that the offense isn't working. And you'd think that there'd be some reckoning. Maybe we need a former coach who's in his 70s or 80s. I don't think Ditka's coming back, but he's
no. So, Q, I think the question that a lot of fans are questioning and wondering, and again, the old school cats like myself, because we've seen bad teams here in Chicago over the years, but the one thing that we pride ourselves on is the fact that, and we talk about defensively, that when teams would come into Chicago or they take on the Chicago Bears, they may say, hey, man, we can win this game, but they knew they were going to be in a dogfight, man. I don't know if teams necessarily feel that. What is your perspective?
Yeah, I think so because of the defense that the Bears host.
Okay.
Yeah, I think everybody knows that. They come in here, it's going to be a defensive game. Like, the defense is going to show up. So we got to bring our A game. Everybody knows that when you come to Chicago. I mean, especially with, like you said, the names you said, man. You got Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, Danny Trevathan, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller. Like, people know that you're going to get a fight for sure. It's not going to be no run over for sure.
So the other $1 million question that a lot of Chicago Bear fans are asking, and we're on with Quentin Demps, former Chicago Bear, joining us on our TR60 hotline, is the play calling of Matt Nagy. And again, before we got you on, I said I feel for Coach Nagy because he's just working with the hand that he's been dealt, man. And it's when they say you get lemons, you make lemonade out of it. It's very difficult for him to try to make the lemonade out of what he has. Do you think, in your mind, watching, like we are, that he needs to finally come to grips and say, hey, you know what? I need to turn over the play calling? Because I personally think that Matt Nagy falls in love with his plays, and he draws it up like we used to do back in the day in the dirt or whatever, and say, hey, man, if you do this, if you do that, this play is going to work. But I think he forgets that there are people on the other side of the ball who's going to try to prevent you from making that play work. I think he falls in love too much with his play calling. Do you think we might see sooner rather than later that Matt Nagy is going to turn over the clipboard and say, hey, I'm part of the blame here, I'm part of the problem because my play calls aren't working?
No, he won't do that. And it's still too early. He's got too much pride to do that right now. He definitely won't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Because especially when you score 17 in the fourth, you see the big plays the defense gave up. It's like we almost there. It ain't me. It's just a few more things here and there that we can fix. So he won't see it as him being him. He won't blame himself at all. Because like I said, it could have won his game. Like, you know what I mean? A few stops on defense, and I think it's a 17-10 ball game to best.
Well, I mean, it could have been a different outcome. It was a challenging game to watch. Hey, man, you want to take a phone call real quick?
Yeah.
Let's go out to the phone. Tommy is on our TR60 line. Tommy, say hello to Quentin Demps, former Chicago Bear.
Well, first of all, I just want to say hey to Quentin, and I appreciate you, your loyalty, and I am a Chicago fan to the day I die, but facts are pretty much facts. And the fact of the matter is that all you need to know about the Chicago Bear organization is the fact that they passed upon a kid who's two-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, and then you want to now turn around and say the coaching is play calling and stuff, but your plays can only be ran by the kind of talent that you got. And it's not saying that we don't have talent, but come on, guys. At some point, the defense is the only reason why I watch. Because I don't know what the hell is going to happen on the offense. I don't know. I mean, one game I turned off and woke up and they won. I was like, what the hell happened? Did they buy the game? They pay him off? Or is this another move by Trump or what? I mean, I just think at some point that the defense should just take rakes with them and just have it out there. I mean, hell, after 3 quarters, 4th quarter, come on, man. I mean, you the teams that the Bears lost to, being absolutely honest and being serious, the teams that the Bears lost to are the teams that you need to beat if you're going to be at least a contender for the playoffs. And with that, I'll go back. I'll wait till next week. Hell, they sobered me up. I was good and drunk, man.
Hey, Tommy, thank you so very much. We appreciate you picking up the phone and giving us a ring. What do you have to say about that, Q?
No, I mean, he definitely made some valid points. Man. Like I said, man, it's any given Sunday. Like, no matter who out there, no matter if you got the MVP of the whole league or if you got Nick Foles, if you don't come to play on Sunday against whoever you play against, it's gonna show.
Hey, man, you want to stick with us real quick, a little bit longer, or you got a break? Q,
wake up.
Yo, yeah, I'm good.
You good? Okay, hang on, man. Hang on. I just want to say that those of you listening, of course, just like Tommy, if you want to jump in, our number is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Bears fall to the Tennessee Titans 24-17. And, of course, they've dropped their 3rd straight game in a row. The Bears, and thanks to our good friend George Bliss, 2 of 15 on 3rd down today, ranked 31st. The only team worse are the Jets. He also said Matt Nagy stink. I don't necessarily say it's Matt Nagy, but I do believe, Q, that he needs to reconsider as far as the play calling is concerned, because the Bears need to do something, and it's unfortunate. Now, Q, this might not work with you, but this is what I think. This is what I truly believe, and the track record speaks for itself. I truly believe if things continue to go south the way that they're going as far as this team is concerned and as far as the win-loss record is concerned, I truly believe that the Bears need to take a serious look at Ryan Pace, the general manager. And if they made a move to say, hey, Ryan, it's just not working out. If George McCaskey told him, say, hey, it's just not working out, man. We need to go in a different direction. I wouldn't be surprised, because Matt Nagy has a winning record here in Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Nagy lobbied for himself to be dual general manager, coach of this football team, because I think Matt Nagy feels that he can make better personnel selections, whether it's in the draft or free agency. I think Matt Nagy feels that if he made the selections and the choices to bring in the players that he feels can run his offense, to run the system, I think he feels that he can execute those plays or have those plays executed, and I think he will get the results that he's looking for.
Jerry, doesn't he have input?
I don't know how much input he has.
You're kidding.
But I'm not kidding.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. You think Hey, Q,
okay.
You tell us, did Matt Nagy make most of these picks on this roster? In your opinion? Huh?
I don't think so. Well, I don't think so.
No.
I think he made a lot of them, though.
I don't know if I don't know, man. I think he made some of them, but I don't know if he made it to the point where he feels that these. I just don't think that he made some of the selections that were made. Yeah. I think with this kid, this Cole Kmet, I think he had something to say about that. I think that kid Mooney, I think he had something to say about that. But overall, I'm
just thinking of non-sports organizations from my own experience that wouldn't make sense that the manager would not have input, and only the general manager would, let's say, in a regular organization.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. But I can't say that I don't think that Matt Nagy, and let's bring in Bruce Herron, who's on our TR60 hotline, because these guys played in the league. Bruce, say hello to Quentin Demps, Q, on our TR60 hotline. Q, say hello to Bruce Herron, former Chicago Bears, number 51 in the roster. He's number 1 in our hearts. Say what's up to each other, fellas.
Hey, Q, how you doing? This is Bruce. Good, man. Good.
Hey, man.
I'm sitting there listening to you guys, man, talking about whether Matt Nagy has any input in the drafting or building of the manpower with the Bears. I tell you one thing: if he doesn't have any input, then the organization is doomed to fail. I mean, you're talking about the head coach. He brought in the system, and he's got to have players to fill in his system. And if the general manager is actually making all those picks without the input of the head coach, then everything falls on the general manager. And I don't think that's happening. I really don't think that's happening. I just think that it's just I really think that it's just the talent evaluation is got to be a problem. Because I mean they've got too many players that just don't fit. They just don't fit. Look at the offensive line, man. The offensive line has been, even before the injuries and the COVID interference. I mean, the offensive line was not very good. Mm-hmm. And it's just how do you go into a season time and time again with an offensive line that just doesn't perform well? It just doesn't make sense to me.
And see, that's the reason why I posed the question, gentlemen, is the fact that and I'm giving Matt Nagy the benefit of the doubt, but I just can't see we know that Ryan Pace is not a very good evaluator as far as talent is concerned. But if you're now saying that Matt Nagy fits in that category as well, like you said, Bruce, it's doomsday as far as this team is concerned, because if you got two guys that can't evaluate talent on the highest level, we're in the worlds of trouble, man.
It's it's not only the two guys, but it's also the scouting organization. I mean, they've got a scouting team. They've got more than one guy that's doing the scouting of these players, and you know they sit in the meeting room and they evaluate talent, and you know, and they look at players perform in college and perform with other teams, and they, you know, not only their draft picks but also their free agency picks. You just got to wonder. I mean, what the heck is going on in the evaluation room? It's not working. Something's not working.
Q, Quentin Demps, what do you think?
Or is it coaching?
So we let a one quarterback mistake tag Ryan Pace as a bad evaluator.